Kalen 7 had been built for one purpose, and one purpose only. Kill the target, eliminate the obstacle, complete the mission. The future had stripped away everything else long ago. There were no victory parades left in his century, no peaceful worlds, no songs drifting through open marketplaces, only endless skies stained orange by orbital bombardments and cities where steel skeletons protruded from mountains of ash. Children learned to identify artillery by sound before they learned to read. Entire civilizations survived underground while autonomous war machines fought wars their creators had forgotten centuries earlier. Humanity had not won the future. It had merely endured it. Kalen stood motionless atop the shattered remains of a communications tower overlooking what had once been the capital of Earth's Northern Alliance. His left arm was forged from matte black alloy, layered with adaptive armor plates that silently shifted as microscopic servos recalibrated. His right eye glowed with a cold blue tactical lens, continuously feeding him battlefield predictions. Thousands of calculations streamed through his neural implants every second. Wind carried burning dust across his dark combat cloak, yet he never blinked. A calm synthetic voice echoed inside his mind. Target probability updated. Enemy command convoy will enter Sector 8 in 43 seconds. I know, Kalen replied without moving. Recommended firing window in 31 seconds. I know. Heart rate stable. Ammunition reserves at 92%. Estimated mission success 99.6%. Kalen disliked unnecessary conversation, even when it came from his own combat AI. I said, I know. The voice fell silent. Far below, 6 armored grav carriers emerged from the ruins, escorted by aerial drones scanning every rooftop. To any ordinary soldier, it would have looked impossible. To Kalen, every vehicle, every drone, every soldier existed as glowing vectors across his vision. Their future positions appeared before they reached them. Their reactions unfolded before they even made them. He exhaled once. The first shot crossed nearly 2 kilometers and punched directly through the cockpit of the lead carrier. Before its wreckage struck the street, Kalen had already fired twice more. Drone 1, Drone 3, Drone 6. Explosions rippled across the convoy. Enemy soldiers scattered exactly as predicted. His tactical eye highlighted escape routes in red. Probability trees blossomed across his vision. One soldier would dive behind concrete. Another would retreat into a collapsed subway tunnel. A commander would attempt to activate emergency shields. Kalen fired 4 more times. Each prediction became reality only because he had already accounted for it. Within 19 seconds, the convoy no longer existed. His combat AI spoke again. Mission complete. 0 collateral deviation. New global efficiency record achieved. Kalen holstered the rifle onto the magnetic clamps along his back without acknowledging the praise. Efficiency was not an achievement. It was the minimum acceptable outcome. The silence that followed felt almost unnatural. Then the sky cracked open. A massive blue fracture stretched across the clouds like shattered glass, bathing the ruins in blinding light. Every battlefield sensor screamed simultaneously. Temporal distortion detected, announced the AI. Kalen's glowing eye narrowed. A figure emerged from the light. Not a soldier, not a machine. An elderly woman wearing a dark scientific uniform stepped calmly through the impossible fracture while automated defense cannons all around her refused to fire. Time itself seemed uncertain how to react. She smiled faintly. You certainly haven't gotten friendlier. Kalen recognized her immediately. Dr. Sarah, the last time you saw me, she replied, I was 32 years younger. You died. I do that eventually. Kalen stared for nearly 3 seconds. For him, that qualified as visible surprise. She walked closer, unconcerned by the smoking battlefield surrounding them. I don't have much time. Ironically, I assume this interruption is mission critical. It is. She held out a small crystalline device, no larger than a coin. Inside it floated countless strands of shimmering light. The future doesn't collapse because of the war. Kalen remained silent. It collapses because someone supplied every faction with technology centuries before they should have possessed it. His processors immediately began assembling historical records. Temporal contamination. Exactly. She nodded. Someone in the present built the foundation of your future. Kalen accepted the crystal. Data poured directly into his cybernetic implants. Names, locations, economic records, weapons shipments. One individual appeared again and again. Varric Saul, industrial magnate, licensed weapons manufacturer, political donor, smuggler, arms dealer, responsible for supplying nearly every major conflict across known space. Officially alive in the present. Officially dead in Kalen's timeline. Dr. Sarah folded her hands behind her back. If he dies before creating those technologies, your future changes. Assassination. Yes. Time of insertion? The present. Probability of success? She hesitated. Lower than you're accustomed to. Kalen looked at her. Irrelevant. She laughed softly. Still the optimist. I am not an optimist. I know. The fracture in the sky began collapsing. You'll be inserted into the neutral trade station known as Meridian Spire. Kalen memorized every detail. Civilian population? About 12 million. Military? Minimal. Law enforcement? She sighed. Complicated. He disliked that answer. She noticed. I know that expression. I have no expression. You absolutely do. Kalen ignored the comment. Mission parameters. Terminate Varric Saul before he completes negotiations with several off-world buyers. Prevent technological contamination. Minimize timeline disruption. He nodded once. Dr. Sarah smiled sadly. I hope. If this works, maybe children in your future won't have to learn the sound of artillery before laughter. Kalen did not answer. Hope had never appeared in his operational vocabulary. The fracture began swallowing her. Oh, she added at the last second, almost as an afterthought, there is one administrative detail. Kalen frowned. She pointed upward. You'll find out. Then she disappeared. The battlefield vanished. Everything dissolved into light. When Kalen opened his eye again, the air smelled completely different. Not smoke, not ash, food, freshly brewed coffee, machine lubricant, rain drifting through climate-controlled ventilation. His tactical systems recalibrated instantly. Population density. Extreme. Threat level. Low. Civilian movement. Chaotic. He stood inside a vast transportation terminal unlike anything his century could have imagined. Glass ceilings stretched hundreds of meters overhead, revealing ships arriving peacefully from dozens of star systems. Merchants argued over prices instead of ammunition. Children laughed while chasing floating holographic balloons. His processors briefly flagged the sounds as unfamiliar. Nobody appeared frightened. Nobody carried military rifles. People actually smiled. One small child looked directly at Kalen's metallic arm and whispered to his mother, "Cool robot." His mother apologized nervously. "I'm sorry, sir." Kalen simply walked past. His combat boots echoed across polished flooring that had never known war. Every advertisement felt absurd. Vacation packages, luxury cruises, concert announcements, restaurants boasting authentic homemade cooking. His tactical AI interrupted. Mission target located within Meridian Spire. Distance 3.8 kilometers. Kalen turned toward the nearest transit platform. A pleasant electronic chime interrupted him. Attention, visiting operatives. Please report to cross-jurisdiction security registration before engaging in any licensed enforcement activities. He ignored it. Another chime. Failure to register constitutes violation of Neutral Accord 17. He kept walking. 3 hovering security drones descended in front of him. Excuse us, traveler. Kalen stopped. You have been identified as an armed extra-jurisdictional operative. I have. You are required to register. No. The drones paused. One processed that response for several seconds. I'm sorry, I decline. You cannot decline. I just did. The drones exchanged silent wireless communications. Finally one replied, Sir, bureaucracy is mandatory. Kalen stared at the machine. After surviving 3 global extinction wars, This was somehow becoming annoying. 10 minutes later, despite considering 17 different escape plans, each unnecessarily lethal, Kalen found himself seated inside a spotless administrative office while a cheerful clerk smiled across the desk. "Welcome to Meridian Spire." Kalen said nothing. "We're delighted to process your operational license." Silence. The clerk continued smiling anyway. "Occupation? Assassin." She blinked. "We'll put down, independent security contractor." She typed happily. "Reason for visit? Eliminate an illegal arms dealer." "Law enforcement cooperation?" "Yes." She nodded approvingly. "Oh, wonderful. We love cooperation." Kalen suspected nobody had ever said those words in his timeline. The clerk scanned his identification crystal. Her smile disappeared. "Oh, what? It appears you're classified as a temporal enforcement operative." "Correct." She winced sympathetically. "That means Clause 47 applies." Kalen waited. She smiled again. "I'm assigning you a local partner." For the first time in years, Kalen's tactical processors produced an error. "Explain." "Cross-timeline diplomatic regulations. Every visiting operative must be accompanied by a licensed local contractor. I operate alone." "I'm afraid regulations disagree." "I was not asked." "They rarely ask." "My efficiency decreases with additional variables." "I'm sure you'll make friends." "I do not require friends." She laughed. "Oh, everyone says that." "I am not everyone." "No." She printed a document. "You are Kalen 7. Correct." She stamped the paper. "And your assigned partner." She glanced toward the waiting area beyond the glass wall. "Is Toby Vance." Kalen turned. A man lounged across 3 chairs with complete disregard for social expectations. He looked to be somewhere in his 30s, though the perpetual grin made him seem younger. His brown jacket had enough stains to qualify as abstract art. One boot was untied, and he was enthusiastically shaking the last crumbs from an oversized bag of cheap synthesized chips directly into his mouth. Without looking up, the man called out, "If that's another parking ticket, I'm innocent." The clerk smiled awkwardly. "Toby?" He looked over. "Oh." He crumpled the empty chip bag, missed the trash can by almost 2 meters, shrugged, and left it on the floor. "You must be the future guy." Kalen said nothing. Toby stood, stretched loudly enough for several people to look over, then wandered toward the office with the relaxed confidence of someone who had never once worried about tomorrow. He stopped in front of Kalen and looked him up and down. Metal arm. Silence. Glowy eye. Silence. Massive gun. Silence. Toby nodded thoughtfully. "So, rough morning?" For the first time since arriving in the present, Kalen's combat AI spoke with something resembling confusion. "Warning. Subject behavior does not match any known tactical profile." Kalen silently reached the same conclusion. This mission had just acquired its first truly unpredictable variable. Kalen continued staring at Toby for several long seconds, waiting for the human to reveal the hidden competence behind the stained jacket, the untied boot, and the lingering smell of artificial cheese seasoning. In Kalen's experience, appearances could be deceptive. Elite assassins disguised themselves as janitors. Intelligence officers posed as bartenders. Entire strike teams infiltrated cities dressed as maintenance workers. Surely this was another carefully constructed deception. Surely the local security guild had not entrusted one of the galaxy's most sensitive cross-timeline operations to a man who had just failed to throw an empty chip bag into a trash can less than 2 meters away. Toby smiled wider. "You're doing that thing where you stare without blinking. Is that intimidation, or did your software freeze?" "I am assessing operational viability," Kalen answered flatly. "And?" Kalen's glowing eye flickered as it completed another scan. "You are carrying 312 credits. Your jacket contains 2 expired transit tickets, 1 multi-tool with a damaged plasma cutter, a portable music player manufactured 9 years ago, 6 sugar candies, and..." He paused. "A rubber duck." Toby looked impressed. "You missed the emergency sandwich." Kalen's tactical eye zoomed in. "Hidden inner pocket. Compressed vacuum package. Protein sandwich." His processors recalculated. "Correction. 1 emergency sandwich." Toby gave an approving nod. Now that's professionalism. It is irrational to conceal food alongside survival equipment. It becomes survival equipment when you forget lunch. Kalen decided not to respond. The cheerful clerk slid 2 electronic identification badges across the desk. Congratulations, you're officially partners. Neither man reached for the badges. The clerk cleared her throat. Company policy says you have to wear them. Kalen picked his up with visible reluctance. Toby clipped his onto the stained jacket upside down without looking. There, Toby said. Now we're official. Kalen examined the badge. Operative pair 814. His processors flagged the wording as deeply unfortunate. We are not a pair. The clerk smiled. According to the paperwork, you absolutely are. I reject the paperwork. The paperwork doesn't reject you. Kalen briefly wondered whether temporal warfare had somehow become easier than civilian administration. Outside the office, Meridian Spire bustled with peaceful chaos. Cargo drones zipped overhead carrying crates of exotic fruit. Alien tourists posed for holographic photographs beneath enormous floating sculptures. Street musicians competed with automated advertisements, while dozens of languages blended into one continuous stream of conversation. Kalen's tactical systems continued identifying potential firing positions out of habit, only to discover they overlooked cafes instead of trenches. Toby shoved his hands into his jacket pockets and began walking. You hungry? No. You sure? Yes. I was thinking pizza. I am planning an assassination. So, after pizza? Kalen stopped walking. I traveled across centuries to prevent the destruction of civilization. Great. My target negotiates illegal weapons transactions within the next 48 hours. Makes sense. There is no scheduled pizza. Toby shrugged. Everything's better with pizza. Kalen resumed walking without answering. After nearly a minute of silence, Toby spoke again. So, what's your name? You have already been informed. I know. I'm making conversation. I see no tactical value in conversation. Exactly. Kalen frowned. Conversations without tactical value are usually the interesting ones. The sentence lingered in Kalen's mind longer than expected. His combat AI quietly noted elevated cognitive activity. He ignored the notification. They entered a public transit platform where silent magnetic trains arrived every 30 seconds. Commuters casually boarded while reading news feeds or drinking coffee. Kalen stood perfectly still, constantly scanning every passenger. Toby leaned against a support pillar. You know nobody's trying to kill you here, right? That assumption lacks evidence. No, it has evidence. What evidence? The guy selling flowers. Kalen looked toward the elderly florist. He appears harmless. He is harmless. You cannot know that. I bought flowers from him last month. He could be operating under deep cover. Toby burst into laughter loud enough to attract curious looks. The flower guy? Correct. As an assassin? Possible. He sells tulips. An effective disguise. Toby wiped tears from his eyes. I like you. I have given you no reason. Exactly. The train arrived. Kalen chose a standing position with complete visibility of every entrance and exit. Toby immediately sat down and fell asleep. Kalen stared. Within 8 seconds, Toby was snoring softly. His combat AI spoke. Question. I know. I was not aware I could ask questions. You are evolving. Concerning. Kalen silently agreed. Why is the partner unconscious during active mission deployment? He is asleep. Correct. Humans require sleep. Current time until target negotiation. 43 hours. He apparently considers that sufficient. The AI paused. I do not understand humans. Neither do I. The train reached the commercial district 20 minutes later. Toby woke instantly. Morning. You slept for 19 minutes. Best 19 minutes of the week. You were vulnerable. So was everybody else. Kalen decided explaining tactical awareness to someone who celebrated public naps would waste valuable time. They approached a towering holographic display showing Varric Saul shaking hands with politicians and business executives. The advertisement proudly proclaimed, "Building tomorrow together." Kalen examined the image. Facial recognition confirmed a 99.9% match. There. Toby squinted. Huh, you recognize him? Yeah, explain. Everybody knows Varric. He is publicly celebrated. He donates a lot of money. He finances wars. Allegedly. He absolutely finances wars. I know. Kalen turned. You know? Toby shrugged. Most people suspect something's off. Then why has he not been arrested? Lawyers. Kalen considered this answer. Lawyers. And accountants. His tactical database contained extensive information on planetary militaries, alien species, and autonomous war doctrines. It contained surprisingly little information regarding lawyers. They entered a quiet observation lounge overlooking Varric Sol's headquarters several blocks away. The building dominated the skyline, wrapped in reflective crystal panels and surrounded by discreet security patrols. Kalen activated a compact holographic projector from his belt. A three-dimensional blueprint of the skyscraper materialized between them. Finally, something familiar. His posture straightened. His voice became crisp. Observe. Toby pulled out another bag of synthesized chips. Crunch. Kalen ignored the sound. The penthouse occupies floors 112 through 116. Crunch. Security rotates every 6 minutes. Crunch. There are 16 automated turrets. Crunch. 28 internal guards. Crunch. 4 emergency escape routes. Crunch. The ventilation shafts. Crunch. Kalen stopped. Toby looked up. What? Are you listening? Absolutely. What did I just say? You said there are numbers. Kalen closed his organic eye for exactly 1 second. His processors recommended controlled breathing. He did not possess enough patience for controlled breathing. The mission requires precision. I can do precision. You have displayed no evidence. I once assembled a bookshelf. What occurred? It mostly stayed upright. Kalen decided not to ask further questions. He enlarged the hologram. My infiltration begins here. A blue line appeared across the rooftop. I descend 62 meters using magnetic climbing anchors. Another line. Security cameras loop for exactly 8.3 seconds. Another. I disable the power relay. Another. I reach the penthouse undetected. Another. I eliminate the target. Another. I exit before local authorities arrive. The hologram froze. Kalen folded his arms. Questions? Toby pointed at the hologram. Where's the elevator? There is no elevator in the plan. Seems inconvenient. The elevator is monitored. So we do not use it. Toby looked genuinely confused. But it already goes to the top. Kalen felt something inside his neural processors threaten to malfunction. We avoid monitored systems. Or, Toby smiled. We make the people monitoring them think we're supposed to be there. Silence. Kalen answered carefully. That strategy depends upon deception. Exactly. Deception introduces unnecessary uncertainty. It also introduces doors opening automatically. Kalen zoomed into the security layout. No. What if I smile? No. What if I carry food? No. Everybody likes food. No. Toby shrugged. Your funeral. Kalen stared at the hologram. His calculations remained flawless. Every angle, every patrol, every contingency. Yet for reasons he could not logically explain, a tiny warning notification continued flashing inside his tactical interface. Unpredictable variable remains active. He disliked that notification very much. As the sun began setting beyond Meridian Spire's glittering skyline, Kalen rented a modest operations room overlooking the district. Within minutes he had transformed it into a command center. Portable scanners mapped nearby communications. Drone feeds displayed security patrols. Digital models of the target building rotated slowly above the table. Every possible route was being calculated simultaneously. Toby wandered around the room. You really travel with all this? Yes, heavy. I am augmented. Still heavy. Kalen ignored him. Toby picked up a small metallic sphere. What's this? Kalen looked up. Put that down. What does it do? It is a molecular breaching charge. Meaning? It removes doors. Neat. It also removes walls. Oh, and occasionally buildings. Toby carefully placed it back exactly where he'd found it. Good to know. For nearly 3 hours, Kalen refined every detail of the operation while Toby alternated between humming old songs, eating snacks, examining gadgets he absolutely should not touch, and asking increasingly bizarre questions. Have you ever owned a pet? No. Favorite color? I do not have one. You should get one. I am selecting ammunition. Right, but after that, Kalen said nothing. By midnight, the plan was complete. His tactical display displayed a single line. Mission success probability. 98.7%. For the first time since arriving in the present, Kalen allowed himself the smallest measure of confidence. Everything had been accounted for. Every variable, every obstacle, every possible reaction. Across the room, Toby looked out the window toward Varric Sol's gleaming tower and casually muttered to himself, I wonder if they deliver pizza that late. Kalen didn't hear him. If he had, he might have realized that the only variable he still hadn't accounted for wasn't inside the target building. It was standing in the same room. Kalen woke precisely 3 hours before sunrise, exactly as scheduled. His internal chronometer activated without the need for an alarm, his cybernetic systems running a complete diagnostic before his organic eye had fully opened. Power reserves stood at 100%. Ammunition levels were optimal. Target tracking satellites remained locked onto Varric Sol's penthouse. Atmospheric conditions favored rooftop insertion. Mission success probability remained at 98.7%. Everything was proceeding according to plan, which was exactly how Kalen preferred reality to behave. He stepped into the common room and immediately froze. Toby was asleep on the couch. That, by itself, wasn't unusual. The unusual part was that every tactical blueprint Kalen had spent hours arranging across the table had somehow become a pillow. Half the holographic projector was buried beneath Toby's shoulder. One boot rested on Kalen's climbing harness, and the empty bags of synthesized chips surrounding the couch looked like the aftermath of a small ecological disaster. Kalen stared in absolute silence. His combat AI spoke carefully. Recommendation. What? Do not terminate your assigned partner. I was not considering it. Your heart rate suggests otherwise. I am merely disappointed. You have never previously used that emotional classification. Recorded as tactical disappointment. The AI accepted the correction. Kalen reached down, lifted his climbing harness free from beneath Toby's boot, and neatly reorganized every piece of equipment with mechanical precision. The movement finally stirred Toby awake. He blinked several times before looking around. Oh, he stretched loudly. Morning. It is 0500. So, technically morning. You slept on classified mission documents. They were surprisingly comfortable. They were reinforced polymer. Good lumbar support. Kalen chose not to ask how reinforced polymer could possibly provide lumbar support. Instead, he projected the operation map once more. We depart in 30 minutes. Toby rubbed his eyes. Already? According to the plan. What if we leave in 40? We do not. What if traffic is lighter then? We are walking. Oh, Toby scratched his head. Fair point. Exactly 30 minutes later, Kalen stood on the rooftop of a neighboring skyscraper overlooking Varric Sol's headquarters. The morning sky glowed with soft gold as commercial air traffic drifted between glittering towers. Through his enhanced optics, Kalen could see every rooftop sensor, every sniper nest, every rotating surveillance drone. Red tactical markers filled his vision like a constellation of calculated threats. Beside him, Toby was eating breakfast. Specifically, a wrapped breakfast burrito purchased from a street vendor 5 minutes earlier. You should not consume food immediately before infiltration. Why? It reduces physical efficiency. I'm hungry. You should have eaten earlier. I wasn't hungry earlier. Kalen slowly turned toward him. You experience hunger only when convenient? I experience hunger constantly. Toby took another bite. I've just learned to work around it. Kalen decided humanity truly had survived through methods no military simulation could ever replicate. He activated the holographic blueprint. We proceed exactly as rehearsed. Sure. You will remain behind me. Okay. You will not engage guards unless absolutely necessary. Got it. You will not improvise. Absolutely. You understand the importance of following the established plan? I do. Kalen studied Toby's face. Why are you smiling? No reason. I believe there is a reason. There probably is. Kalen felt his processors issue another warning. Unpredictable response detected. They crossed the rooftops with remarkable speed. Kalen moved like living machinery. Every leap measured to the centimeter. Every landing nearly silent. Magnetic boots adhered perfectly to steel surfaces while his cybernetic arm effortlessly pulled him across maintenance structures. Behind him came an entirely different style of movement. Toby climbed a ventilation unit because he thought it looked easier. Slid down a solar panel because it was faster. Almost tripped over an antenna. Stopped to wave at a maintenance drone. The drone flashed a friendly acknowledgement. Kalen turned. Why did you wave? It waved first. It was performing a calibration sweep. Still counts. Kalen resumed moving. He reminded himself repeatedly that homicide against one's assigned partner constituted paperwork. They finally reached the final rooftop overlooking Varric Sol's tower. Kalen crouched behind an air conditioning unit. This is the insertion point. He fired 2 magnetic anchors across the gap. Steel cables locked securely into the target rooftop. Crossing. Without hesitation, Kalen attached his harness and glided across the cables with flawless precision, landing silently between 2 rotating sensor arrays exactly where his calculations predicted. He looked back. Toby. No answer. Toby. Still nothing. Kalen's tactical eyes scanned the neighboring rooftop. Empty. His processors immediately accelerated. Partner location unknown. Threat probability rising. Had Toby fallen? Been captured? Wandered away? His combat AI highlighted 23 emergency scenarios. Then his communicator crackled. Hey. Kalen pressed the receiver. Report. I'm downstairs. Kalen went completely still. Explain. I found a staircase. We were infiltrating from the roof. Yeah, but stairs already go down. Kalen closed his eye. No. I'll meet you inside. The transmission ended. For exactly 3 seconds Kalen considered abandoning the mission entirely. Instead, he activated his cloaking field and continued alone. Inside the building, Toby walked toward the front entrance carrying a large insulated delivery bag he had borrowed from a breakfast cafe 2 blocks away. He looked at the receptionist. Delivery. The receptionist frowned. I didn't order anything. Toby looked down at a small handheld screen. Huh. He sighed dramatically. They've done it again. What? They mixed up another address. Oh, the manager's gonna yell at me. The receptionist visibly sympathized. That's rough. I know. She smiled apologetically. You'd better check upstairs. Exactly what I was thinking. She pressed a button. The executive elevators are on the right. You're a lifesaver. No problem. Toby walked toward the elevators. No alarms sounded. No weapons were drawn. No stealth technology was required. Kalen, meanwhile, had spent the last 6 minutes disabling rooftop laser grids with microscopic precision. His tactical AI suddenly interrupted. Unexpected update. What? Partner has entered the building. Kalen smiled faintly. Excellent. He used the main entrance. Silence. What? He is currently riding Executive Elevator 1. Kalen's expression vanished. Impossible. Confirmed. He bypassed 17 security checkpoints. Confirmed. How? Unknown. Kalen immediately rerouted his infiltration path. Every calculation changed. Every prediction shifted. His beautifully optimized plan had just been shattered by one human carrying imaginary breakfast. Meanwhile, Toby stepped out onto the executive floor. A heavily armed guard looked at him. Delivery? Yep. I don't remember ordering food. Toby shrugged. Neither did the receptionist. The guard scratched his helmet. Fair enough. He stepped aside. Leave it in the lounge. Will do. Toby wandered through one of the most secure floors in Meridian Spire while humming quietly to himself. He looked around. Fancy place. An assistant smiled politely. First time here? Yeah. You'll get used to it. I doubt that. He noticed a maintenance corridor nearby. More importantly, he noticed an electrical outlet. Oh nice. He walked toward it. The assistant called after him. The lounge is the other way. I just need to charge my music player. She blinked. You came to work with a dead music player? I forgot. Understandable. Toby plugged the charger into the wall outlet. Nothing happened. Huh. He unplugged it. Tried the neighboring socket. Still nothing. He spotted a nearby electrical cabinet. The label read, Primary Security Power Distribution. He didn't actually read the smaller text underneath. He simply opened the panel. Let's see. Inside sat hundreds of glowing switches. One tiny indicator blinked yellow. Huh. He flipped it. Across the entire skyscraper, security systems shut down simultaneously. Laser grids disappeared. Surveillance cameras went dark. Electronic locks disengaged. Automated defense turrets powered off. The building fell eerily silent. Across the rooftop, Kalen's tactical display exploded with warning notifications. Security grid offline. Camera network lost. Automated defense disabled. He stopped moving. Report. His combat AI sounded equally confused. We appear to have complete access. Cause unknown. Kalen's communicator crackled. Hey, future guy. What? I think I broke something. Kalen's voice became dangerously calm. Define broke. Remember that outlet I wanted? You altered the security infrastructure. Was I not supposed to flip the blinking switch? Kalen looked toward the now completely unprotected penthouse. Every defensive system he had spent hours preparing to bypass simply no longer existed. His 98.7% infiltration plan had become entirely obsolete because one man wanted to listen to music. For several seconds, Kalen's processors failed to generate an appropriate response. His combat AI quietly announced, Warning. What? I believe your tactical philosophy is experiencing emotional damage. For the first time in his entire military career, Kalen found himself unable to disagree. Kalen reached the executive floor less than a minute later, though it felt much longer. The maintenance door slid open without resistance because every electronic lock in the building remained disabled. He stepped into a corridor that should have been crawling with automated defenses, only to find security officers running in every direction with handheld flashlights, shouting contradictory orders while maintenance workers argued over malfunctioning systems. His tactical eye struggled to process the scene. Updating threat assessment, his combat AI reported. Proceed. Unable. Kalen frowned. Explain. Enemy movement no longer follows predictable defensive doctrine. He looked around. One squad sprinted toward the basement. Another rushed toward the rooftop. A supervisor was yelling into a communicator that wasn't receiving a signal. Maintenance drones spun helplessly in circles after losing connection with the central network. His AI continued. Recommendation. What? Observe the human. Kalen disliked that recommendation almost as much as he disliked the fact that it was beginning to make sense. His communicator crackled. I'm by the fish tank. Kalen blinked. What fish tank? The really expensive one. There are multiple expensive fish tanks. The one with the grumpy blue fish. Kalen looked around. His tactical display immediately highlighted 3 aquariums worth more than most armored vehicles from his century. He located Toby leaning casually against one of them, watching a large alien fish glare at him through the glass. There you are, Toby said as Kalen approached. You disabled the building. I know. You compromised my infiltration. I also know. You entered through the main entrance. Still true. Kalen stared at him. Why are you feeding the fish? Toby dropped another food pellet into the water. It looked hungry. The fish belongs to an international weapons trafficker. The fish didn't choose that. Kalen silently added the sentence to a growing mental list titled Things Humans Apparently Believe. A distant alarm suddenly echoed through the floor. Unlike the previous automated sirens, this one was shouted by an exhausted security officer. Manual lockdown. Everybody to defensive positions. Somebody killed the security grid. Toby raised one finger. Technically. Kalen interrupted. Do not finish that sentence. Several heavily armed guards rounded the corner, their rifles raised. "There," one of them shouted. "Stop where you are." Kalen's tactical systems immediately highlighted lethal firing solutions. 8 guards. Average reaction time 0.8 seconds. Estimated engagement duration 4.6 seconds. Probability of civilian casualties unacceptable. Before he could act, Toby stepped forward carrying the insulated delivery bag. "Oh, thank goodness," Toby exclaimed with convincing relief. "Are you security?" The lead guard frowned. "Obviously." "Perfect." Toby held out the bag. "I've been trying to find somebody in charge." The guard lowered his rifle slightly. "What is that?" "Free breakfast." The guards looked at one another. Kalen slowly turned toward Toby. "What?" "The cafe downstairs accidentally made 30 extra breakfast wraps." "You are lying." "I prefer the phrase, creative problem solving." One younger guard hesitated. "They're free? Management said not to waste food." The young guard looked toward his squad leader. "We skipped breakfast." Another guard nodded. "So did I." Within moments, 5 armed security officers had gathered around Toby while he distributed wrapped breakfasts with the confidence of someone hosting a neighborhood picnic. Kalen watched in stunned silence. His AI finally spoke. "Enemy combat readiness reduced by 83%. I can see that. Cause appears to be carbohydrates." Kalen had studied centuries of military doctrine. None of it mentioned breakfast. The squad leader unwrapped his meal. "You know." He took a bite. "This is actually pretty good." "Glad you like it," Toby replied. "So where were you supposed to deliver these?" Toby glanced at Kalen for half a second. "Oh, executive conference room." The guard sighed. "Meetings cancelled." "Really? Whole building's a disaster." He shook his head. "Security grid crashed. Communications are down. Nobody knows what's happening." Toby nodded sympathetically. "Sounds stressful." "It is." The guard waved lazily down the hallway. "If you're heading to the conference level, take the service elevator. Main hallway's packed." "Thanks." "No problem." The guards continued eating while Toby casually walked away. Kalen followed several steps behind. After they rounded the corner, he finally spoke. "You bribed armed professionals with breakfast." "I shared breakfast." "They abandoned their post. They were hungry." "That should not have worked." "It usually does." Kalen's processors recorded another tactical anomaly. Hunger could override combat discipline. Obvious in retrospect, yet somehow absent from every simulation he'd ever studied. The service elevator sat inactive without power. Toby pressed the button anyway. Nothing happened. "Huh." Kalen walked over, gripped the elevator doors with his cybernetic arm, and effortlessly forced them apart. The shaft. Toby peered downward. "We're climbing?" "Yes." "How many floors?" 4. "I suddenly miss electricity." Kalen fired a magnetic grappling line upward. "I will ascend first." He launched himself smoothly toward the maintenance platform above. Halfway up, he looked down. "Toby." No answer. "Toby." Still no answer. Kalen leaned over the edge. His partner wasn't climbing. Instead, Toby had wandered into the adjacent maintenance room. "What are you doing?" Toby's voice echoed back. "I found a vending machine." "We are infiltrating." "I know. It is not operational." "I noticed." Kalen watched as Toby crouched beside the machine, studying it. Then Toby smiled. "Oh, what? I know this model." Before Kalen could ask what that meant, Toby reached behind the machine and pulled a small manual release lever. Dozens of snack packages dropped into the collection tray. Toby looked delighted. "Jackpot." Kalen descended halfway back down the shaft. "Explain." "They lock electronically." "Correct. But emergency regulations require a mechanical override." He held up 3 candy bars triumphantly. "They teach you this in college?" "No." "Military?" "No." "Then how do you know?" "I got hungry once." Kalen genuinely could not determine whether that answer was brilliant or deeply concerning. They finally reached the penthouse level. Without electronic security, the luxurious corridors felt strangely vulnerable. Priceless artwork decorated polished walls. Massive windows overlooked the sprawling city below. Somewhere nearby, Frightened executives argued with bodyguards over disconnected communication systems. Kalen activated a compact drone. It floated silently ahead, mapping thermal signatures. 21 hostiles. Toby looked around. I count 0. They are behind walls. Oh, multiple heavy weapons. Less fun. The target occupies the central office. Great. Kalen drew his rifle. From this point onward, absolute silence. Toby nodded seriously. No jokes. No unnecessary conversation. Understood. No improvisation. Got it. Kalen advanced through the hallway with perfect discipline. Every corner was checked. Every doorway scanned. Every movement deliberate. Behind him, silence. That worried him. He looked back. Toby? Nothing. He immediately retraced 3 steps. The corridor was empty. His combat AI sighed. I have located him. Where? Approximately 12 meters to your left. Kalen entered a luxurious employee lounge. There sat Toby on an expensive leather couch beside an elderly janitor drinking coffee. The two were laughing. Kalen stopped. Explain. The janitor smiled warmly. Your friend here helped me fix the coffee machine. Toby held up a screwdriver. It was just a clogged filter. Kalen's eye twitched. We are in the middle of a covert operation. The janitor blinked. Operation? Toby stood quickly. He means Operation Save the Coffee. The old man nodded enthusiastically. Good fellow. He pointed toward the eastern hallway. If you're looking for Mr. Saul, he stormed into his private office 10 minutes ago. Kalen slowly turned toward Toby. How? Toby shrugged. I asked. The janitor waved. Tell him old Harris says he still owes me for 30 years of skipped coffee breaks. As they walked away, Kalen finally asked the question that had been bothering him since they met. Do you know everyone in this station? No. Then why do strangers continually help you? Toby thought for a moment. I usually start by treating them like people. Kalen didn't answer immediately. His tactical systems had no category for that statement. Ahead, 2 heavily armored guards suddenly emerged from the corridor, weapons already raised. There they are. This time, there would be no breakfast. No coffee. No distractions. The guards opened fire. Kalen reacted instantly. His cybernetic arm deployed an energy shield while his rifle fired 2 perfectly timed bursts. One guard's weapon exploded. The second lost his balance as precision rounds shattered the floor beneath him. Before either could recover, Toby grabbed a decorative metal statue from a nearby table. Kalen expected him to throw it. Instead, Toby rolled it across the polished marble floor. The heavy statue slid directly beneath the charging guard's boots. The armored man stepped onto it. His feet flew forward. He crashed backward into his own partner, and both men slammed into a priceless crystal display case that collapsed with a deafening crash. Silence followed. Toby looked at Kalen. I was aiming for something cooler. Kalen stared at the unconscious guards. His AI quietly updated the combat log. Enemy neutralized. I am aware. Method of neutralization. The AI paused. Classifying. Can you not classify it? Negative. Reason. No existing tactical category includes rolling decorative artwork at hostile personnel. For the second time that day, Kalen found himself facing an outcome that every algorithm insisted should have been impossible. And for the second time that day, the impossible had worked. The crash of shattered crystal echoed through the executive level like an explosion. For less than a second, the hallway fell silent. Then every remaining guard in the penthouse seemed to wake up at once. Heavy boots thundered across marble floors, emergency lights switched from soft white to flashing amber, and voices erupted from every direction. East Corridor. Seal the conference wing. Protect Mr. Saul. Kalen didn't wait for another order. His tactical eye flooded with fresh data as thermal signatures multiplied across the building. Updating enemy positions, his combat AI reported. 21. 25. Correction. 31 armed hostiles converging. Expected arrival? 46 seconds. Kalen looked toward Toby. We move. Now. I'm moving. No conversation. I wasn't. No jokes. I didn't. No comments. I literally wasn't saying anything. Kalen sighed internally. Good. They sprinted through the corridor. Kalen moved with terrifying precision, hugging cover, checking every angle before crossing an opening. Toby ran beside him with considerably less technique, occasionally glancing at paintings on the walls. You know, Toby said while jogging, this place has really nice decorating taste for an international criminal. Kalen didn't answer. They should have spent less on sculptures and more on security. They did. Fair point. A reinforced blast door suddenly slammed shut 20 meters ahead. Kalen stopped instantly. Obstacle detected. His cybernetic arm transformed, mechanical plates shifting into a compact breaching configuration. Stand back. The servos whined as immense force gathered within the metallic limb. Kalen drove his fist into the locking mechanism. The entire reinforced door buckled inward with a deafening metallic scream before collapsing into the corridor. Toby stared. Okay. Kalen stepped through without slowing. That never gets old. It is efficient. It is extremely cool. It is efficient. They're not mutually exclusive. Before Kalen could respond, 3 armored guards emerged from the smoke on the opposite side. Weapons raised. Training perfect. The lead guard shouted, "Open fire." Kalen had already calculated every trajectory. His rifle barked 3 times. The first guard lost his weapon as the rifle exploded in his hands. The second's helmet display shattered, temporarily blinding him. The third managed to fire exactly 1 shot before Kalen's cybernetic arm caught the plasma bolt against an energy shield. The glowing impact illuminated the hallway. Kalen advanced relentlessly, every movement economical, every shot deliberate, no wasted ammunition, no wasted motion. Toby watched for exactly half a second. You're terrifying. I know. You say that like it's normal. It is. The disoriented guards attempted to regroup. Before Kalen could finish disabling them, Toby suddenly shouted, "Hey!" All 3 guards instinctively looked toward him. Toby pointed behind them. "I think your boss is escaping." Every guard turned. For one brief moment, long enough, Kalen fired 3 stun rounds. All 3 collapsed simultaneously. His combat AI immediately logged the engagement. Hostiles neutralized. Kalen lowered his weapon. Why did they turn around? Toby shrugged. I sounded confident. They had no reason to believe you. Most people don't stop and analyze confidence. Kalen silently filed away another unexpected lesson. Confidence itself could become a weapon. The pair continued deeper into the penthouse. Luxury gradually gave way to hardened security architecture. Decorative artwork disappeared, replaced by reinforced walls, biometric checkpoints, and armored bulkheads. Varric Saul clearly valued his own survival more than appearances. Kalen paused beside an intersection. Enemy patrol approaching. How many? 6. You got a plan? Yes. Good. We eliminate them. That's technically a plan. Kalen stepped into position. The patrol rounded the corner exactly as predicted. 6 rifles swung toward him. Exactly as predicted. The first guard squeezed the trigger. Exactly as predicted. Kalen's tactical eye displayed hundreds of possible futures branching before him. He selected the optimal sequence. Sidestep, shield deployment, precision burst, rotate, low sweep, counterfire. Everything unfolded perfectly. Within 5 seconds, 5 guards were unconscious. The 6th dropped his rifle and raised both hands. I surrender. Kalen aimed his weapon. The mission allows no unnecessary risks. Before he could fire a disabling shot, Toby walked between them. Easy. He remains a threat. He's terrified. The distinction is irrelevant. The surrendering guard looked ready to faint. Toby smiled reassuringly. What's your name? The guard blinked. Darren. See? Toby looked back at Kalen. Darren's having a rough day. Darren attempted to kill us. His boss signs the paychecks. Kalen remained motionless. Toby turned back to the guard. Darren. Yes? Where's Varric? The guard hesitated. Kalen quietly raised his rifle again. Top executive office. Darren answered immediately. Private elevator. Last hallway. Any surprises? The guard swallowed nervously. Heavy response team. How heavy? They're bringing the Titan unit. Toby looked confused. That sounds expensive. The guard nodded. It is. Kalen lowered his weapon. The information is useful. Toby grinned. See? Kalen looked directly at Darren. Remain here. I will. If you move, I won't. After they continued down the hallway, Kalen finally spoke. You trusted him. I gave him a reason to cooperate. He feared death. Also true. Kalen's processors reluctantly admitted that Toby had extracted intelligence faster than traditional interrogation methods. That realization irritated him far more than it should have. Suddenly, the entire building shook. Heavy footsteps echoed somewhere ahead. Each impact vibrated through the polished floor. Boom, boom, boom. Toby frowned. That's probably the Titan thing. Kalen's tactical eye zoomed through several walls using thermal imaging. A massive heat signature slowly approached. Height: approximately 3 meters. Armor thickness: military grade. Integrated rotary plasma cannon. Hydraulic exoskeleton. Probability of direct engagement success: 62%. Lower than Kalen preferred. The enormous security mech stepped into view. Unlike the ordinary guards, this machine resembled a walking tank. Layers of black composite armor covered its frame while rotating weapon systems tracked every movement inside the hallway. An amplified voice boomed from external speakers. Unauthorized personnel detected. Toby whispered, "It's yelling." I noticed. You will surrender. Kalen calmly raised his rifle. Negative. The mech opened fire. The hallway erupted into blinding plasma. Kalen tackled Toby behind a reinforced support pillar just before the wall behind them disintegrated. Chunks of marble exploded into dust. The support pillar cracked. His AI spoke rapidly. Warning. Armor penetration exceeds expected levels. I know. Direct assault not recommended. I know. Alternative? Kalen looked around. Very little cover. Limited maneuvering space. Heavy armor. Minimal weak points. Before he could formulate a new attack plan, Toby peeked around the pillar. Can I try something? No, you didn't even hear it. I do not need to. It might work. It will not. You don't know. I possess extensive combat experience. So do I. Kalen looked at him. You do? I've worked customer service. Kalen genuinely had no response. The Titan mech advanced. Each step crushed the marble beneath its feet. Its cannon charged once again. Toby suddenly stood up. Hey! Kalen reached for him. What are you doing? The mech stopped. Its sensors focused entirely on Toby. Toby spread his arms dramatically. You call that armor? Kalen stared. What? The Titan unit processed the statement. Insult detected. Yeah. Toby nodded enthusiastically. I've seen bending machines built tougher than you. The mech's optical sensors brightened. Hostile psychological provocation identified. You've got tiny shoulder plates. False. They're adorable. The machine took another step forward. Kalen watched in disbelief. Are you mocking military hardware? I'm distracting it. It is a combat mech. It's working. The Titan's targeting systems locked exclusively onto Toby. Every other tactical priority disappeared. Kalen's combat AI suddenly announced, opening detected. He saw it immediately. The mech had rotated too far. Its rear cooling vents were now exposed. Probability of success, 96%. Kalen moved, faster than human eyesight could follow. 3 magnetic grenades struck the exposed vents. He dove behind cover. The grenades detonated simultaneously. Compressed plasma burst outward from inside the mech. Hydraulic systems failed. The Titan staggered, then collapsed with a thunderous metallic crash that shook the entire floor. Silence returned. Smoke drifted through the ruined hallway. Toby looked at the wreckage. Huh. Kalen slowly stood. You antagonized an armored combat platform. I've argued with worse. It became emotionally compromised. Everybody hates being called cute. Kalen looked at the smoking mech. His tactical database contained thousands of methods for defeating heavy armor. None of them included hurting its feelings. For the third time since meeting Toby Vance, Kalen quietly updated his understanding of warfare. Humans did not merely think differently. They somehow convinced the universe itself to cooperate with bad ideas. And somewhere behind the reinforced doors ahead, Varric Saul had just been informed that his elite Titan unit had been defeated. He would no longer underestimate the intruders. The mission had entered its most dangerous phase. The wreckage of the Titan unit had barely stopped smoking when every remaining security channel in the building switched to emergency frequency. Even with the primary communications grid disabled, backup analog systems crackled to life. Somewhere beyond the reinforced walls, officers shouted overlapping orders while mechanical locks slammed into place one after another. Kalen knelt beside the ruined mech and connected a cable from his cybernetic wrist directly into its damaged processor. "What are you doing?" Toby asked. "Extracting tactical data. Can it still think?" For approximately 9 more seconds, his glowing eye pulsed as streams of information flooded into his neural interface. Building schematics, guard deployments, emergency barricades, weapon inventories. Then another file appeared. Project Bastion. Threat level Omega. Kalen immediately disconnected. His expression hardened. "Toby, yeah, we are leaving." Toby blinked. "Really? The mission profile has changed. I thought we were getting close." "We are. So why leave?" Kalen stood. "Because Varric Saul possesses military hardware that should not exist in this century. That's kind of his whole thing." "You misunderstand." Kalen projected a hologram from his wrist. Inside the rotating blueprint rested something enormous hidden beneath the executive office. A spherical chamber. Power signatures beyond anything currently available to civilian science. His AI spoke quietly. "Temporal technology confirmed." Kalen nodded once. "There it is." Toby leaned closer. "What's it do, if activated?" Kalen paused. "My future becomes inevitable." For the first time since they'd met, Toby didn't joke. "So that's bad." "It is catastrophic." They resumed moving through the increasingly fortified corridors. The luxurious offices had disappeared entirely. Everything ahead resembled a military bunker. Blast-resistant walls, manual security doors, ceiling-mounted weapon ports. The deeper they advanced, the more Kalen recognized engineering principles from his own century. His jaw tightened. He already started. "What? Someone has been giving him future technology." "You mean before you even got here?" "Years before." Toby whistled softly. "That's cheating. It is temporal contamination." "So?" Toby scratched his chin. "We're basically arresting tomorrow for breaking yesterday." Kalen looked at him. That sentence was grammatically offensive. It made sense. It absolutely did not. It did in my head. Kalen suspected that was precisely the problem. They reached the final security checkpoint. A massive reinforced blast door stood between them and Varric Saul's executive chamber. Unlike the previous electronic doors, this one relied entirely on mechanical locking wheels. No power, no circuits, no hacking. Toby walked forward and grabbed one of the wheels. "Need help?" "I possess sufficient strength." Kalen's cybernetic arm locked into place. Hydraulics roared. The massive locking mechanism slowly began turning. Steel groaned. Concrete cracked. Even with his augmented strength, the ancient mechanical system resisted every centimeter. Toby watched for a few seconds. "You know what? We're both pushing the same direction." "Correct. What if we pull?" Kalen stopped. "That is the opposite direction." "Exactly. No. Have you checked?" Kalen stared at him, then reluctantly examined the mechanism. His tactical eye analyzed the gears. 5 seconds later, his combat AI interrupted. "Observation. What? The human is correct." Kalen looked again. The locking mechanism was reverse-threaded. He had been tightening the door, not opening it. Without saying a word, he reversed direction. The enormous wheel immediately spun with surprising ease. The blast door slowly rolled aside. Toby smiled. "Happens to everybody. It has never happened before. There's a first time for everything." Kalen silently added another entry to his growing list of humiliations. The executive chamber beyond looked less like an office and more like a private fortress. Towering windows overlooked Meridian Spire. Ancient sculptures stood beside cutting-edge technology. Weapon displays lined polished walls. In the center of the room stood Varric Saul. He looked surprisingly ordinary. Gray hair, expensive tailored suit, polished shoes, no visible weapons, only calm confidence. He slowly applauded as they entered. Remarkable. His voice carried effortlessly across the room. I expected professionals. Toby looked around. We are professionals. Varric smiled. I was referring to him. He nodded toward Kalen. You. His eyes settled on the glowing cybernetic implants. Are exactly what my investors promised. Kalen's rifle rose instantly. Mission objective confirmed. Varric remained perfectly calm. You've come from the future. Correct. And you believe killing me changes history. It does. Varric chuckled softly. History is much larger than one man. Kalen's eye glowed brighter. It begins with one. The arms dealer slowly walked toward the panoramic windows. You know, he folded his hands behind his back. People always imagine that civilization falls because evil wins. He smiled faintly. It doesn't. It falls because demand never disappears. Toby frowned. That's a depressing sales pitch. Varric ignored him. I simply provide what people already want. Weapons, Kalen answered. Security, murder, opportunity, war, profit. Each word landed calmly, without emotion, without apology. Kalen had met monsters before. Most enjoyed pretending they weren't. Varric wasn't pretending anything. He genuinely believed himself to be practical. You condemn me, Varric continued, yet in your future. He looked directly at Kalen. How many people have you killed? Silence filled the room. Finally, Kalen answered. I stopped counting. And yet you call me the villain. I became necessary because of people like you. Varric smiled. Perhaps. Then he pressed a small mechanical switch hidden beneath his desk. Nothing happened. He frowned. Pressed it again. Still nothing. Toby raised one hand. Question. Varric looked annoyed. What? Does that button normally work? It should. I might know why it doesn't. Varric narrowed his eyes. Why? I accidentally shut your building off. For the first time, Varric completely lost his composure. You what? I was charging my music player. Silence. Absolute silence. Even Kalen waited. Varric blinked twice. You disabled. He pointed around the room. My entire headquarters. Yeah, because of music. It wasn't even charging. Varric slowly lowered his hand. I spent 20 years building this organization. I can tell. My security network cost over 300 million credits. Probably more now. And one. He searched desperately for appropriate words. One idiot with a charger destroyed it. Toby nodded sympathetically. When you say it out loud. Kalen noticed something fascinating. Varric wasn't angry. He was distracted. His breathing had changed. His attention was fractured. His carefully maintained composure had collapsed under the sheer absurdity of Toby's explanation. His combat AI whispered. Opportunity detected. Kalen moved instantly. His rifle fired a precision electromagnetic round directly into the concealed weapons console beneath Varric's desk. Sparks exploded. Hidden turrets died before activating. Varric stumbled backward. Kalen advanced. You anticipated every military strategy. Another shot destroyed a concealed drone launcher. But not him. A third round shattered a hidden emergency communicator. Varric reached inside his jacket. Kalen's rifle tracked the movement. Too slow. Far too slow. Before Varric could draw the compact plasma pistol concealed beneath his coat, Kalen had already crossed the room. His cybernetic hand seized the weapon. Crushed it effortlessly. The expensive alloy folded like paper. Kalen threw the ruined pistol aside. The two men stood face to face. One represented the future's greatest assassin. The other, its greatest mistake. You lose, Kalen said quietly. Varric laughed, not confidently, desperately. You still don't understand. He nodded toward the floor beneath them. The prototype. Kalen's tactical eye immediately scanned downward. Deep below the executive office, the enormous spherical chamber was activating. Without electricity, without the security network, its independent power source had finally come online. His AI spoke immediately. Warning, I see it. Temporal reactor charging. Estimated completion? 4 minutes. Toby looked between them. Is that bad enough to run? Kalen didn't answer immediately. Instead, his tactical display calculated hundreds of combat outcomes. Destroy reactor. Success probability. 12%. Evacuate immediately. Timeline survival. 0%. Mission continuation. 12%. His processors reached the same conclusion every time. There was no favorable solution. For the first time in years, Kalen accepted mathematical reality. He looked toward Toby. My calculations indicate a 12% chance of survival. Toby nodded slowly. So, we prepare for a final engagement. You really don't like good odds. There are none. Kalen calmly removed the power core from his rifle, then another from his cybernetic arm. He began assembling them together into a compact overload device. Toby watched carefully. What's that? A sacrifice? You planning to tell me before you explode? The reactor must be destroyed manually. And you? I remain with it. Toby folded his arms. No. Kalen looked up. No, I don't like that plan. It is the only statistically viable option. It's also a terrible one. The mathematics disagree. Toby smiled. The mathematics haven't met me yet. For reasons Kalen couldn't explain. That ridiculous sentence somehow made him hesitate. Kalen stared at Toby for several seconds, trying to determine whether the human had finally lost what little tactical judgment he possessed or whether this was simply another example of the inexplicable confidence that seemed to accompany every terrible idea Toby ever produced. The reactor beneath the building continued charging. His tactical display counted down relentlessly. 3 minutes, 42 seconds. 3 minutes, 41 seconds. Every projection remained unchanged. 12%. No matter how many variables Kalen introduced, the outcome refused to improve. Toby, he said quietly, this is no longer a conventional engagement. I figured that out around the giant glowing doomsday ball. The reactor cannot be allowed to activate. I know. I have already computed every viable approach. And there is only one. You explode. Correct. Toby scratched the back of his neck. Yeah. He smiled apologetically. I'm voting against that. Kalen almost sounded irritated. This is not a democracy. No. Toby nodded. It's a rescue mission. Before Kalen could respond, Varric suddenly laughed again. The arms dealer had quietly backed toward the far side of the executive chamber while they argued. You really are extraordinary. He slowly spread his hands. The perfect assassin. His gaze shifted toward Toby. Completely compromised by one unpredictable primate. I prefer human, Toby replied. I don't. Varric reached into his pocket. Kalen immediately raised his rifle. Do not. Instead of drawing a weapon, Varric removed a small metallic key. A physical key, not electronic, not biometric, mechanical. He smiled. You disabled my technology. He tossed the key into the air. But some things are too important to trust to computers. The key landed in his palm. Then he sprinted toward a reinforced maintenance corridor. Kalen fired instantly. The shot struck the heavy blast door just as it slammed shut. Too late. The corridor sealed. His AI spoke immediately. Target escaped toward reactor chamber. Kalen moved toward the door. It's reinforced. I know. Estimated breaching time. 2 minutes. Kalen clenched his metallic fist. We do not have 2 minutes. Toby looked around the office. There has to be another way. There is not. You checked? I have scanned every visible. Toby wasn't listening anymore. Instead, he wandered toward the enormous panoramic windows overlooking Meridian Spire. He leaned closer to the glass. Huh. Kalen continued trying to force the blast door. Toby. Yeah? What are you doing? Looking outside. Why? I was wondering. He pointed downward. How old this building is. Kalen stopped. Explain. See those support beams? What about them? They've been repaired. Kalen reluctantly looked. Sure enough. Several exterior structural braces differed slightly in color. Replacement components, newer than the original construction. His tactical eye immediately analyzed them. Reinforcement modifications, load distribution altered, unexpected asymmetry detected. Toby continued thinking aloud. They probably added those after expanding the upper floors. Kalen's processors accelerated. Stress calculations appeared automatically. Weight distribution, support angles, structural compression. Then his combat AI suddenly interrupted. Observation. What? The human has identified an architectural weakness. Probability trees exploded across Kalen's vision. Destroying one specific support column would overload the replacement framework, collapsing only the executive extension. Directly above the reactor chamber. Containment failure. Reactor destruction. Estimated survival probability, 38%. Kalen looked at Toby. How? Toby shrugged. My uncle was a contractor. You recognized a structural flaw. I recognized somebody cutting corners. Kalen stared through the window again. Every military simulation had focused on enemy forces. No simulation had questioned the quality of civilian construction permits. Toby, yeah, you may have increased survival probability. Good. To 38%. Toby grinned. I'll take it. Kalen immediately repositioned himself. His tactical eye highlighted the precise load-bearing junction. Distance, wind resistance, material density. One perfect shot. He raised his rifle, then froze. A new warning appeared. Insufficient firepower. The support column had been reinforced with dense composite alloys. His remaining ammunition couldn't penetrate deeply enough. Negative. What? The column will withstand impact. Toby looked around again. Then his eyes landed on something hanging from the ceiling. An enormous decorative kinetic sculpture composed of several massive steel rings suspended above the executive lobby. What about that? Kalen followed his gaze. Decoration. It's heavy. Approximately 11 metric tons. If it falls, Kalen immediately recalculated. The sculpture would strike exactly the weakened structural joint. With sufficient kinetic force, probability increased. 51%. His AI spoke. Revised recommendation. I know. Toby pointed upward. So, yes, how do we make it fall? Kalen examined the suspension cables. Triple magnetic anchors. Industrial tension locks. Normally impossible to release manually. Normally. He slowly looked toward the smoking wreckage of the Titan unit visible through the destroyed hallway. Its rotary plasma cannon still remained attached. Damaged, but intact. He understood immediately. So that's the plan? Toby asked. It is now. The two sprinted back through the ruined corridors. Emergency lights flashed faster as the reactor continued charging below them. 2 minutes remaining. Scattered guards attempted to intercept them. Kalen disarmed one with a brutal strike from his cybernetic arm. Toby convinced another group they were running toward the explosion instead of away from it. The guards looked at one another, then instinctively followed. Kalen glanced sideways. Why did they do that? Nobody wants to be the only one running the wrong direction. Again, human psychology, not military tactics. Finally they reached the shattered remains of the Titan unit. Kalen tore the enormous plasma cannon free using his metallic arm. Hydraulic pistons screamed under the weight. The weapon alone weighed nearly as much as a small vehicle. Toby looked impressed. You lift. Kalen ignored him. They dragged the massive cannon back toward the executive lobby. 90 seconds. Kalen connected emergency power cells from his own cybernetic systems into the weapon. Warning lights flickered. His AI announced, weapon integrity compromised. I require one shot. Probability of catastrophic failure. I require one shot. Acknowledged. High above them, the giant steel sculpture slowly rotated beneath the vaulted ceiling. Kalen aimed carefully. His tactical eye calculated angle after angle. Wind, distance, energy loss. Perfect solution acquired. Then Toby suddenly nudged the barrel. A little left. Kalen frowned. My calculations are precise. I know. But trust me, I possess no mathematical justification. No. Toby smiled. You've got me. For for perhaps the strangest reason of his entire career. Kalen adjusted the barrel, exactly 3 degrees. He fired. The damaged plasma cannon erupted like a miniature sun. The recoil blasted chunks of marble from the floor. The weapon immediately exploded apart in Kalen's hands. But the shot had already crossed the lobby. Instead of striking the center cable, it hit the decorative counterweight Toby had noticed. The enormous sculpture lurched violently. One support cable snapped, then another. Then the final anchor failed. 11 tons of steel crashed downward. The impact shook the entire skyscraper. Support beams screamed. Concrete fractured. The replacement structural braces Toby had identified buckled exactly as predicted. Cracks raced through the executive extension. Far below, the reactor chamber ceiling collapsed. A deafening shockwave erupted upward through the building. Blue temporal energy exploded harmlessly into open air instead of concentrating inside the containment sphere. Every light in the skyscraper died instantly. Silence. Then, the reactor signatures vanished. Kalen's combat AI spoke after several seconds. Mission update. He looked toward the ruined skyline. Proceed. Temporal contamination prevented. Future stability? Timeline divergence confirmed. Kalen slowly lowered the ruined cannon. We succeeded. Somewhere beneath the collapsed debris, security teams began shouting. Emergency crews rushed into the building. Varric Sol's empire was literally falling apart around him. Toby dusted concrete from his jacket. Huh. Kalen looked at him. What? I guess your math needed better construction inspectors. For the first time in decades. Kalen laughed. It wasn't loud. It wasn't long. Barely more than a single quiet breath escaping between exhausted words. But it was unmistakably laughter. His combat AI immediately announced, new emotional response detected. Kalen looked toward Toby, who was already grinning. Delete that record. I'm afraid I cannot. Why? It has already been permanently archived. Toby raised an eyebrow. Did your own computer just tease you? Kalen looked toward the ceiling for a long moment, then answered with complete sincerity. I believe spending time with you has damaged its judgment. Toby laughed so hard he nearly sat down on the broken marble floor. The first emergency responders arrived less than 3 minutes after the reactor's destruction. Fire suppression drones descended through the shattered skylights, spraying cooling foam across smoking debris while medical teams hurried into the collapsing executive wing. Automated rescue machines cut through twisted steel, searching for survivors. Kalen stood perfectly still amid the chaos, calmly reloading his rifle as though the collapse of a criminal empire were just another completed assignment. Toby, on the other hand, had accepted a bottle of water from a paramedic and was trying to convince a rescue drone that it deserved a vacation. I appreciate your concern, Toby told the hovering machine. The drone emitted a series of electronic beeps. I know you've got work to do. Another sequence of beeps followed. Kalen walked over. Who are you talking to? The rescue drone. It cannot understand casual conversation. The drone beeped again. Toby nodded. See? It disagrees. Kalen looked at the machine. The drone politely rotated toward him before continuing its work. His combat AI quietly commented, the drone appears friendlier. I refuse to analyze that sentence. Security forces soon surrounded the ruined executive floor. Unlike the private guards they had fought earlier, these officers wore the insignia of Meridian Spire's neutral security guild. Weapons remained lowered as they approached the two operatives. The commander removed her helmet and sighed. I've been trying to reconstruct today's events. Kalen handed over his temporary identification badge. Mission complete. She accepted it without taking her eyes off the devastated office. I can see that. Her gaze shifted toward Toby. And you are? Toby Vance. The report says you disabled the building's security network. I did. Accidentally? Extremely. She nodded slowly. It also says you distracted the Titan unit by insulting it. Apparently it had self-esteem issues. Several nearby officers unsuccessfully tried not to laugh. The commander continued reading from her datapad. You distributed breakfast to hostile security personnel. They looked hungry. You repaired the executive coffee machine. It was making sad noises. You convinced multiple guards to surrender voluntarily. They seemed reasonable. She lowered the datapad and stared at him. I've been doing this job for 22 years. Congratulations. I have absolutely no idea how you accomplished any of this. Toby smiled. I usually don't either. Meanwhile, a team of investigators approached Kalen carrying a secured metal case. One technician cleared his throat. Operative Kalen 7? Yes. The temporal reactor fragments have been contained. Excellent. The timeline stabilization field has already begun correcting local anomalies. Kalen nodded once. So it is finished. The technician hesitated. Not entirely. He handed Kalen a sealed communication crystal. Temporal Command insists you submit your after-action report immediately. Kalen accepted it. He disliked paperwork almost as much as bureaucracy. The crystal activated, projecting a life-sized hologram of Dr. Sarah. Unlike their last meeting, she appeared several years younger, evidence that the timeline had already begun shifting. She smiled the moment she saw him. You survived. I did. And the reactor? Destroyed. The contamination? Prevented. She exhaled in obvious relief. Then history has changed. Kalen remained silent. She noticed Toby standing beside him. I assume this is your assigned local partner. Kalen looked at Toby, who was currently attempting to balance an empty water bottle on his forehead. Correct. Dr. Sarah smiled politely. Thank you. Toby waved. No problem. She turned back to Kalen. I've already received the preliminary combat data. I expected as much. There is one section I'm having difficulty understanding. Kalen wasn't surprised. Specify. She looked down at the report. It says the mission succeeded due to, and I'm quoting directly here, weaponized social interaction, structural shortcuts, breakfast distribution, psychological insults directed at military hardware, and one vending machine. Correct. She looked up again. Is the report damaged? No. Corrupted? No. She blinked twice. So, that's what happened. Approximately. Dr. Sarah slowly removed her glasses. I've spent 40 years studying temporal warfare. I am aware. I don't have a research category for any of those things. Neither did I. For the first time since Kalen had known her, Dr. Sarah laughed so hard she had to steady herself against a nearby console. I suppose history really has changed. It has. She smiled warmly. And you? What about me? You sound different. Kalen hesitated. I acquired additional operational experience. Toby leaned toward the hologram. He laughed. Kalen immediately looked at him. You promised not to mention that. I promised nothing. Dr. Sarah's smile widened. You laughed? No. The report recorded elevated emotional activity. My combat AI malfunctioned. I did not. The AI interrupted through Kalen's external speaker. Dr. Sarah laughed again. Oh, this I have to preserve for the archives. Kalen briefly considered disconnecting his own AI. Several hours later, after statements had been collected and evidence secured, the two partners returned to the same administrative office where their assignment had begun. The cheerful clerk looked up from her desk and gasped. Oh my! She looked past them toward the emergency broadcasts playing silently on a nearby screen. Was that your mission? Yes, Kalen answered. She glanced at the images of the collapsed executive tower. You certainly work quickly. Toby smiled. We skipped lunch. She typed rapidly into her terminal. Excellent. I'll just close your temporary partnership record. Kalen nodded. Proceed. The clerk frowned. What? She typed again. What? She typed even faster. Oh dear. Kalen immediately sensed danger. Explain. She smiled nervously. So, she turned the monitor toward them. It appears that during the emergency response, the Cross-Timeline Oversight Council reviewed your mission performance. Kalen already disliked where this was going. Their conclusion? The clerk swallowed. They've upgraded your partnership status. I requested no such action. They didn't ask. Toby leaned over the desk. Upgraded how? The clerk read directly from the screen. Due to unprecedented operational effectiveness resulting from complementary tactical methodologies, Operative Kalen 7 and licensed contractor Toby Vance are hereby designated Permanent Cross-Timeline Joint Response Team 17. Silence. Long, painful silence. Kalen finally spoke. Permanent. The clerk nodded apologetically. Permanent. There must be an appeal process. There is. When? She checked another page. Average processing time. She smiled awkwardly. 43 years. Kalen closed his organic eye. Toby burst into laughter. So we're roommates now? We are not. Work roommates. No. Timeline roommates. No. The clerk quietly slid 2 brand new identification badges across the desk. Unlike the temporary ones, these were engraved in polished alloy. Across the top they read, Joint Response Team 17, authorized for interdimensional operations. Toby clipped his onto the same stained jacket. Looks official. Kalen reluctantly picked up his badge. His combat AI spoke. Congratulations. Silence. You now possess a statistically permanent friend. I possess a statistically permanent complication. Classification accepted. As they stepped outside the administration building, Meridian Spire was already returning to normal. Street vendors reopened their stalls. Children chased holographic balloons across the plaza. Music drifted from cafes as if the day hadn't nearly ended in temporal catastrophe. Toby reached into his jacket. You want some chips? No. They're barbecue flavor. No. They're actually pretty good. I decline. Toby shrugged and opened the bag anyway. They walked in silence for several minutes. Finally, Kalen spoke. There is something I do not understand. Only one thing? The probability models. What about them? They consistently failed to predict your actions. Makes sense. They were designed using centuries of military history. There's your problem. Kalen looked at him. Military history studies soldiers. So? I'm just a guy. The sentence lingered in Kalen's thoughts. All his calculations, all his simulations, all his tactical perfection, had always assumed opponents would behave rationally. They had never accounted for ordinary people doing extraordinary, ridiculous things simply because they seemed like good ideas at the time. His future had been shaped by machines learning to predict warriors, not humans, certainly not Toby Vance. A sleek temporal transport craft descended into the plaza, signaling it was time for Kalen to return to whatever future now awaited him. The boarding ramp extended with a soft mechanical hiss. Dr. Sarah's voice came over the external speaker. Operative Kalen 7. Timeline stabilization complete. You may return. Kalen looked toward the ship. Then toward Toby. You are not coming. Toby frowned. What? Kalen pointed toward the transport. There is only one seat. Oh. He nodded thoughtfully. Guess this is goodbye. Before Kalen could respond, the transport's onboard computer chimed. Correction. Mission database updated. Passenger manifest revised. A second seat unfolded from the wall. Dr. Sarah sounded genuinely confused. Why is there another seat? The ship's computer answered in a pleasant tone. Permanent partnership protocol requires joint deployment. Toby slowly turned toward Kalen with the biggest grin Kalen had ever seen. So, he picked up his duffel bag. Where are we causing problems next? Kalen looked toward the sky, then toward the transport, then back at the smiling human who had defeated elite security forces with breakfast, bending machines, structural engineering, and shameless confidence. After a very long silence, he gave the only honest assessment his remarkable career had ever produced. I survived 3 extinction wars, 14 assassination campaigns, and the collapse of civilization. Toby nodded. That's impressive. Kalen stepped onto the transport with the weary resignation of a man accepting a fate worse than combat. They were all easier than partnering with one human. The transport lifted into the sky as Toby's laughter echoed through the cabin. Even Kalen's combat AI quietly added one final note to the mission archive. Mission status. Complete. Timeline saved. Probability of future chaos. 100%.